Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well, having yourselves a fantastic start to your morning and your weekend out there. Got you an update on the weather as we always do in the morning videos. We got chances of severe weather for a few areas that we need to watch. Some of these similar areas has been dealing with it over the last, I would say, week. The Northeast is under the gun today after being under the gun, 2 or 3 days ago. So I think it's going to be quite active today for areas in the New England region. But the good news is, the bad news is you got to deal with the storms. The good news is the air mass that follows behind the storms is just going to be beautiful, and we'll talk about that in this video. And I think just a pretty large area could experience at least a chance of showers and storms a day, some that which could be severe. So we'll talk about it all in this video. We'll break it down. I'll be honest with you guys. I'll be ready when we stop talking about severe storms, and that's going to require us to get obviously into late fall, into winter. But I'm certainly I'm just ready for a change. I certainly am. So, but the weather's going to weather. It's going to do whatever it wants, regardless of what I want it to do. So, but with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below. And not only that, you just need somebody to talk to. You just reach out. I'm here. I'm all ears. It's this is based off the weather, yeah, but. If you just want to shoot me a message, there's chances I won't be able to get back to you immediately, but I will try to get back to you guys. So available on Twitter, Facebook. I'm the most active on Twitter, but definitely hit me up, guys, with anything weather or unweather related. So let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop, as we always do. The ridge is still out there, just it's pretty broad, and it's getting smashed down by this trough digging in out of Canada. Okay, but ahead of this, you're going to have a line of storms with the advancement of this mid-level trough that's already ongoing right now in portions of the Ohio Valley. Now, the atmosphere is really going to build into this area of New England, the Northeast today. So it's going to really become unstable. So all this action in Ohio moving into Western PA, Western New York State this morning will, I believe, intensify as it moves into portions of the Mid-Atlantic in the Northeast, talking about you folks in like Mass and Connecticut, Rhode Island, even portions of Vermont and New Hampshire as we get into the later morning hours into the afternoon hours. Okay, so we got that going on, and there's a trailed boundary that extends all the way back into here. So I definitely think, and we're already experiencing some of it this morning, I think you're going to get some strong to severe storms that get going in this region today. Okay, and then you got an eyesore right here, this complex of storms right here in the white. This is severe warned right now, as of right now. Models are not picking up on this well. Some of the latest short-range model guidance is, but we will watch this as it continues to kind of move into northeast Kansas and then eventually move out of Nebraska into northern portions of Missouri, this region right here later this morning into this afternoon hours. Okay, then you got this low pressure that continues to spin around. This was a neat little storyline yesterday in the weather world, as it was doing some crazy stuff right down in the southeast, the coastal regions of Georgia, but it will continue to spin around, and I think it'll create a really kind of cloudy, lower temperature, maybe rainy, stormy day here in areas of Georgia and the Carolinas, especially South Carolina. And we'll see what that does. But we will watch a complex of storms that could sweep across areas of Tennessee and the southern Alps region later this afternoon to this evening. And then we just got some monsoonal energy right here. We'll watch for some big time storm action that might fire up in the high plains. Some of these could be supercells, and we could watch some severe weather with the monsoonal energy down here trapped under this ridge. So that's kind of what's going on based off the water vapor loop. I don't think I missed anything there. Let's get this off the screen. Let's keep rolling. So what is actually falling from the sky? Well, we'll zoom into this region right here in the Ohio Valley first. We'll get this back in motion because it likes to glitch on me. We're dealing with some showers and storms. Nothing severe right now here, moving into the eastern hills of Kentucky. Some action here in far southern Illinois, southern Indiana, areas of Ohio. The worst of the weather is pushed through. And I think that for the most part today in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, up to Michigan, I think it'll be much quieter today as a more stable air mass moves in. But this is the area right here. where all the action is ongoing right now. Nothing severe warned as of right now. But like I said, this entire area right here will really become unstable later today as moisture builds, CAPE levels rise, and then you will have enough of kinetic flow in the atmosphere to produce a very small tornado threat. There's a 2% risk of a tornado, but this is the area heading towards you folks here in New York State, southern New England, all of New England, New Jersey, the Delmarva region. I think we'll have a totally different branch of storms that really gets going down here later for the mid-Atlantic region. So I will tell you, yesterday the models performed horribly. I feel like making that 37 minute video was that for absolutely nothing yesterday because the storms did whatever the heck they wanted to do. So I think the models have a better handle on what develops today with this mid-level trough digging into the northeast. I think this is a little bit more cut and dry, if you will, but a little bit more just there for us. So it's a little bit better to explain. I think the confidence is a little bit higher on what's going to happen today, but that's what's going on. And then we back it up and move further west, and we got this big complex of storms surging through Nebraska, and the models picked up on this pretty well. Now this is still packing a punch here in southern and southeast Nebraska. If you are in northeast Kansas, maybe even extreme southwest Iowa, and definitely northern Missouri later this morning, you want to watch out for this line of storms. I don't know how much it's going to hold together, but this is really packing a punch right now. Like I said, northeast Kansas right now, be prepared for this because even though maybe your forecast area didn't pick it up on it well, maybe it did, this is going to definitely, it might catch some people off guard. So be careful with that. Storm Prediction Center today, a little small marginal risk south of Phoenix into the Tucson, Arizona area. Slight risk right here in the High Plains region. Great Plains too, might as well say. This extends into southeast Wyoming all the way down to the Front Range of Colorado into the eastern Colorado. But it's a huge marginal risk. Extends from Montana, slims out right here, but then winds back out and just sweeps across this entire region of the plains, the Mississippi Valley, into the Mid-South, portions of the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and then into New England where you got the slight risk. Okay, that's level 2 out of 5. So you can actually see the weather flow out there pretty well, and where the boundary is, the upper troughs moving through this region right here. So therefore, stable air. So, you're not going to get really any thunderstorm action here in the Great Lakes region because you got the cooler, stable, drier air moving in. But anything along this boundary and south of it, you're going to have a chance for not only storms, but some to be strong to severe. So that's kind of the player for today's weather. Tornado threat, there is the 2% risk. Some higher populated areas up here in southern New England. This does include New York City up to Boston, everybody in between. Okay, so this green area, 2% risk of a tornado. Wind threat, both slight risk have that 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. I think damaging winds could be a bigger storyline today than anything. We'll see what happens. And then the hail threat, that lowers in the northeast with just poor lapse rates, just ingredients not really supported for a big hail threat with these storms today. But I definitely think that you're going to get a hail threat up here. Over here out west in the High Plains region, and this region right into here of Colorado, Wyoming, and then areas of Nebraska too. Now I think you could get some big storms in western North Dakota and South Dakota today. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit in the next outlook from the Storm Prediction Center that you get an extension further east of this marginal risk, maybe even a slight risk pulled up here. So we'll see what happens. Just a reminder, I'm making this as of 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. They'll have another update here in the next hour and a half or so, and things might change from what I'm showing you right now. Excessive rainfall outlook. You got a slight risk in southern New England. That's basically means there's a 15% risk of excessive rainfall being exceeded. Wouldn't be surprised if they issue a slight risk down here in the coastal regions of South Carolina. We'll see what happens, but just a marginal. And then the southern and central Alps region of eastern Kentucky, the mountains of Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and West Virginia, you got that slight risk. Remember, that is at least a 15% risk, a flash flood guidance being exceeded. So we certainly could get a lot of rain in these areas today, and we will watch out for that as I'm watching for a big line of storms to form in this area. kind of in the same areas that we saw yesterday. That was a tricky line of storms that moved over like West Virginia, places like that just the models did not really pick up on. Just always remember, models aren't guidance. Your weather app on your phone isn't guidance. It isn't conclusive scenarios of what's going to happen. Just remember that. Heat advisories will continue south of this boundary. Excessive heat warnings in Kansas, Missouri, areas of Illinois continue. Heat advisories for areas of the Mississippi Valley, pretty much all of the central and southern Mississippi Valley. You guys have heat advisories, very hot day today. Nothing uncommon these days, really. But excessive heat warnings up for the Delmarva, Mid-Atlantic regions. I think today will be kind of the last day of this. Tomorrow it might get warm again before the cold front pushes through. But I think today will be kind of the last really hot day for this region. And it'll get hot one last day up here in southern New England, too, where heat advisories extend all the way up into New York City, even Boston, so Long Island. You got the severe thunderstorm watches right now. You got some flood watches up for Mass and Connecticut and Rhode Island too. Some excessive heat watches for the Panhandle of Florida and northern Florida, and some heat advisories continuing for southern Florida. So, moving forward, National Hurricane Center update. We got a 70% chance of this wave to develop, but I can tell you the models have struggled with this. And whatever does develop, there's clear indication that this is going to go out to sea, and but there is a 70% risk of this area developing within the next 7 days. And if it does, I think it will probably somewhere in this region as it's beginning to make its turn back out into the North Atlantic. This area looks more impressive than this, but this area is not expected to develop. So let's talk about the lower 48. The southeast today will section this off into different sections. Moving forward here, two storylines here. One's this low pressure. There will be some circulation motion here in South Carolina today as this weak surface low kind of pushes some showers along the Carolinas, even eastern Georgia today. And then another feature that we'll watch is a line of storms that develops here in the Central Apps and moves due south into North Carolina, Virginia, could extend back west into into Kentucky and Tennessee. And this line of storms, you got to watch out for this one later tonight. If you got any outdoor activities in this region, be aware of this line of storms. This thing could pack a punch today, and this eventually can make it all the way down to the Carolinas. So let's zoom into all these regions. Let's talk about Kentucky, Tennessee, kind of the southern Ohio Valley states first. Moving through in time, we'll take it all the way to about 1 p.m. Nothing going on, then bang. Right around 2 to 3 p.m., some stronger storms could get fired up here near Elizabethtown, Louisville, Lexington, Frankfort, eastern Kentucky regions. And then they will continue to kind of seep southward, and then they could develop more into a cluster of storms. So by the time you're 5 p.m., you got some evening activities, Bowling Green, watch out, southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee. These kind of begin to maybe turn into a line. Now, they look kind of disorganized still. It's around 7 p.m. You got some storms as far back as the Boot Hill, Missouri, which we'll talk about here in a second, and another panel here. And then we got some storms even trying to refire back here in extreme southern Illinois, Indiana. But I think southern Kentucky could be quite stormy this afternoon, this evening. If you live in northeast Tennessee, western areas of Virginia, which we'll talk about here in a second, definitely a stormy evening for you folks. These will continue to sweep down, make it all the way down, and to pretty much, I think areas of eastern Tennessee get hit first, and then maybe another line of storms develops later this evening for like Nashville, then areas further west in Tennessee. But this could be a totally different setup, totally different scenario than what this is showing today. So it's important, and I'm not going to go through every single bit of model guidance, guys. The video would go on for 45 minutes, but just know that area does stand a good chance for showers and storms. So I'm going to show this one. We'll talk about kind of Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, eastern Tennessee, West Virginia, western Virginia, and this. Two things going on here. One is this surface low. This will kind of spin some downpours here in the Carolinas today. Some of these storms could be strong, but I think the biggest threat with this is frequent lightning and certainly flash flooding. A lot of rain could fall with this, with the precipitation values pretty high. So I think in like eastern South Carolina, southeast North Carolina, I think it'll be quite a rainy day. down here. And then we watch this area up here. So let's go on and back this up. So like I said, your Midlands of South Carolina points east, south, and just southeast into the southeast portions of North Carolina. I think, if you're not seeing rain, I think it'll be clouds, maybe some breaks in some clouds, but I think you could definitely get a lot of shower and storm activity. So you focus up here. I think some storms get going here in West Virginia. They fire off here. And sent maybe around the Charleston area, down to the Beckley region. And then these quickly turn into a line of storms, guys. And in fact, let's just look at the latest run and see what it shows here. And same kind of scenario, fire some storms off in this region. These begin to seep southward. I think if you're in western areas of Virginia, the foothills, mountainous regions of Virginia, I think that you guys could see a stormy afternoon. This is around 4 or 5 p.m. And these continue to ooze kind of southeastward. And I think by the time we get to 6 to 8 p.m., the mountains of North Carolina up near Boone, Banner, Elk, the Piedmont, the Triad of North Carolina could be start to get impacted by these, and these could sweep across almost the entire state of North Carolina, but especially the western half of North Carolina. Asheville, 8 to 10 p.m. could get some storms, and these eventually can make it all the way into the upstate of South Carolina, central South Carolina, as we get into the overnight hours. And we'll stop it right here. And honestly, I think this is as far out as we need to go, because I know the models are going to struggle with these little complex lines of storms. We call these mesoscale convective systems, and models do not handle these well at all, not even a little bit. So, if you're in central South Carolina later tonight, you could be woken up by some rumbles of thunder unless you just stay up really late. So, rainfall from today, they're going for 1 to 2 inches of rain around the Charleston area. Okay, Orangeburg, a lot of rain potentially today. We'll see what happens with that. And then this area of rain, which is pretty large, half inch to 1 inch of rain is possible. Some people will get more, some people will get less, as being depicted by this line of storms that could develop in Kentucky, West Virginia, and then sweep down across the central and southern Alps region and deliver a lot of rain with it. So we'll certainly watch out for that. Northeast, and we'll cover the mid-Atlantic region here in a second. But we're going to sweep through this entire 24-hour time frame on this geographical region and really show you what happens today. It's just a full swoosh of storms. And we already showed you what's going on right now in this portion of the country. And this will continue. And as you can tell, it kind of weakens. And it almost looks like this area right here really forms, and then here it goes. You get some big storms that could get going in the mid-Atlantic region. But this will be the active area down here. Look at this nasty line of storms around 6, 7, 8 p.m. sweeping across as far north as southern sections of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, southern New England. All these regions down here, very stormy late afternoon, late evening time frame. We could get some big storms that sweep through, but once they move through, you don't have any more storms that form behind it. The atmosphere behind it is very nice, so you'll go to bed, very moist atmosphere, very stormy. Chances are you'll wake up tomorrow morning, and it's like a breath of fresh air compared to what you've seen, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's zoom into the mid-Atlantic region. We've already kind of talked about this line of storms. We'll do it again. West Virginia, some storms could form, and these could extend all the way into southeast PA. And I think, there's a slight risk that goes all the way, level 2 out of 5, that goes all the way into Virginia today. So guys, if you're in Virginia, anywhere in Virginia, especially, watch out the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, Maryland, eastern PA, Delaware, New Jersey. These storms, guys, can pack a punch. Some hail, damaging winds. Damaging winds is a big threat with these today. Could get some shelf clouds. If you don't know what a shelf cloud is, literally just Google it and it'll be like, okay, I've seen that before. But these storms, once again in Virginia, it could be another active afternoon, evening. It was pretty active yesterday. These storms will probably sweep through right around, in general, the same time frame, 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m. But like I said, it could look much different than this. But Delaware, storms showing up around the 5 to 6 p.m. time frame. And, I know you see this area broken up over kind of eastern and northeastern sections of Virginia and Maryland. But this could very well be a powerful line of storms sweeping through this area. Could look totally different. Okay, this continues, and then with the swooshing of the air mass, by the time you get into the evening, late evening, overnight hours, we're pretty much done. But this afternoon, this evening, this entire area you see on your screen, maybe except Ohio and western PA because you're dealing with that this morning. You guys stand a chance for strong to severe storms this afternoon and this evening, okay? We'll take a huge look at the New England region, and same deal. I kind of just showed this, but I'll show it again. We'll stop it here. You guys around 3 p.m., I think it'll be very rainy, very stormy for the northern portion of New York State, the southern tier of New York State, the Finger Lakes region. I know I got quite a few of viewers in the southern tier region of New York State. It's going to get quite stormy just after lunchtime today, maybe a little sooner. These storms could be severe, pack a punch, could get a really strong to severe storm. Watch out in southern to southeast PA. The models are liking the idea of that. And then these close in on that I-95 corridor, right? So you stop it here. It's around 6 p.m. The HRRR model is saying it's going to be storming really good around the Albany area. Storms just moved out of the Binghamton region. They're closing in on the Scranton region, moving through southern areas of Vermont, central areas of New Hampshire, big storms in southern sections of Maine. These continue, and this is when you watch out for that tornado threat that could be embedded with this line of storms. Some quick spin-ups. Around 6 to 8 p.m., these storms are blasting through southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, all of Massachusetts. Obviously, it'll hit western Mass before eastern Mass, and these just continue. And I think Boston, it could be a pretty loud late evening for you guys, or just evening time frame. So if you go out and about on the town in Boston, even down in New York City, just be aware that some storms can move in sometime during your evening activities. And then this moves through. And then by the time we get into after midnight, we're done. We're dealing with some lingering rain here in the down east areas of Maine. But we're waking up tomorrow morning with a much different air mass. But this is the wind gust swath. So this is basically trying to pick up on where the gustiest winds will be. And like I said, I think it'll be the worst in New York State, southern New England, central Vermont, New Hampshire, and extreme southern sections of Maine, points south, even Pennsylvania. And you see these little embedded areas in Pennsylvania, Virginia that could get 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. But you're going to get some 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts easily with these storms. And certain areas will even get more than that, 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts with these. And you look at the updraft velocity swath, and this is why they got the 2% risk up here. It's very highlighted in Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire, even areas of New York State. And basically where you see these, where it goes to yellows, the orange, and reds here, that is basically where the models say the highest chance for some for some rotating updrafts will be. That means you got that chance for a storm that is rotating that could potentially create a spin up or a tornadic situation. So that's what's going on today. So please be careful. Kinematics are the best up here for a spin. So please be careful. And please heed any tornado warnings up here later this afternoon, this evening, because chances are you're not going to have supercells. You might not see these tornadoes. It's going to be something that's probably going to be embedded in a line of storms, and it could approach as the sun is setting too. A lot of rain could fall here in these regions, unfortunately. Southern sections of Maine, an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter. Southern Vermont looks like a hot spot for a lot of rain today based off the National Weather Service. And then Massachusetts, Mass, Northern Connecticut, Rhode Island, heck, maybe an inch, inch and a quarter, 2 inches of rain's possible. It really likes this area right here in Massachusetts. So we'll see what happens. But basically, I want to show you this because this is the good news. This is the light at the end of the tunnel for the Northeast. Very moist area we're waking up to this morning, even up into the Green and White Mountains, the Adirondacks, dew points well into the 60s. But check this out. As you move further in time, look at those dew points in the 50s and 40s in Canada. Okay, you're moving through in time. You're getting into the afternoon hours. Some dry air already oozing into the northern portions of Vermont and New York State, and this continues. Right? By the time you're into this evening, you're barely hanging on to this tropical air mass for dear life along the I-95 corridor. But I'm telling you, there will be some very moist air just ahead of this cold front. But look, just up the road from you guys in the mountains of interior Northeast, dry air oozing down. Okay, you keep on getting into the overnight hours. If you're a night owl, if you wake up around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, almost the entire interior Northeast is pretty much cleared out, much more stable air. And if you're not familiar with dew points, you should become more familiar with them because they're huge when indicating how humid it is in the atmosphere. Dew points in the 70s is very humid tropical air mass. Dew points in the 60s, You can feel the humidity, especially if you're more sensitive to it in areas that don't typically see a lot of humid weather. It's a little humid, but once you get into the lower 60s, you start to really drop off. Once you get into the 50s, it's not very humid at all. Unless you're in the desert Southwest, then you're a lot more sensitive to the humidity. But in general, we get all the way to waking up for your Sunday morning, which is around this time frame. Dew points are dropping into the upper 50s in the Boston, southern New England area, waking up to, this isn't temperatures, these are dew points, waking up to dew points in the 50s in New York City, and just a different type of air mass as you're waking up for your Sunday morning. I think by the time you get into tomorrow night, Monday morning, you'll be able to maybe open up your windows up here in the Northeast and just kind of clear out your house, things like that. So enjoy that, but you gotta have to get through these storms today. South Central U.S. Rain, monsoonal kind of energy and moisture here in New Mexico. Some big storms are possible here in Colorado. We'll talk about that here in a second. We're going to talk about Missouri here in a second also. But for my folks in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, except extremes northern Arkansas, you guys could get some storm action later this evening. Not a whole lot going on. Louisiana pretty quiet. Mississippi pretty quiet. But we're going to talk about this area here in a second. Normally I have this area. It kind of flip-flops. I have Missouri in the south central area. Sometimes I have it in the north central area. I really need to get it right for you folks in Missouri. But the north central region, the Great Lakes region, guys, even down into the Midwest region, different air mass. You're not going to deal with much storm action today. I mean, this is getting into this afternoon. Could get some showers to develop in northeast Wisconsin around the Green Bay region. I wouldn't be surprised if they do one bit. Some showers could enter western sections and central areas in Michigan. But this is the big action today, and we're going to zoom into this here in a second. But one area I want to talk about that the models are really struggling with is this area right here. And we'll jump back to the radar. I'm going to talk about Missouri really quick here. We'll look back at the radar. Remember, for my folks in Missouri, this is what's going on to your northwest up in Nebraska, moving into northeast Kansas here in the next hour, okay? And you are dealing with some rain already down here in southern and southeast sections of Missouri. So just note that as we go back to this. So the models, 3 to 4 model runs ago was not picking up on this at all. Now the latest model guidance is. So that's good news. The models is picking up what's actually falling at the surface. We get to about lunchtime. We see some storms starting to enter in far northwest Missouri. And it does indicate that this line of storms in Nebraska weakens. But kind of the outflow out ahead of this re-energizes some more energy across central Missouri. So if you're in Columbia, Missouri, Jefferson City, heck, even back to Kansas City, and I would say the St. Joseph region a little bit earlier in the day. But once you get to about afternoon, guys, late afternoon, I think another area of storms could form. And I wouldn't be surprised one bit. You get a slight risk issued maybe from Missouri later today. But these storms could pack a punch. Don't want to ignore Missouri. This is around 5 p.m. Jefferson City's being impacted. St. Louis, you guys could get some storms. Watch out if you got any evening activities out and about on the town in St. Louis. Some storms could move through. And then these make it eventually all the way down to the Boot Hill, Missouri. For you folks down here, Poplar Bluff, down to even getting into portions of southern Illinois, Carbondale, you guys could get a pretty intense line of storms that could get going around 8 to 9 p.m. based off the HRRR model. These could make it clear across southern Illinois, the Boot Hill of Missouri, western sections of Kentucky, the Paducah, Mayfield area. Watch out for some storms later on. And these can make it eventually all the way into western sections and northwest sections of Tennessee later this evening, okay? I'm not going to keep it going any further than that just because the models are struggling, but this is the latest HRRR model, only goes out 18 hours anyway, so be careful with this later tonight for this region of the country because this is kind of new model guidance coming in indicating that, but that's why you do have the marginal risk in that region. My folks in the northern plains could be quite active today. You're waking up to some crisp conditions in northern and northeast sections of South Dakota, waking up to the low 40s in certain areas. Man, that's nice for the last days of July. We keep this going, guys. Some powerful storms could get going here in eastern areas of North Dakota. You got some supercells that's kind of riding this boundary between this trough and this ridge. And look at these storms right up here for my folks in western areas of North Dakota. You know, watch out the Williston area, Minot, North Dakota. What is it? Dickinson, Bismarck. You guys, there's an isolated chance you could get impacted by a pretty nasty supercell, some large hail. You know, right now the Storm Prediction Center only has a very small section of North Dakota, just in a marginal risk. But I want to watch out my folks down here and the Front Range and eastern areas of Colorado too. Even though the ARRL model doesn't show much, we look at what happened in Iowa yesterday. Remember when I went over all that information? Hardly nothing showed up in Iowa. And then remember what we ended up getting in Iowa. We had some nasty storms and some absolutely horrible humidity in areas. That corn was definitely sweating in Iowa yesterday. And if you're not familiar with that, corn sweats in Iowa and actually increases the humidity and actually affects surface observations out there. So you had temperatures like in the low to mid 90s with dew points in the mid 80s. And guys, I can't even explain how that feels like, because I've never felt a dew point of 85 or anything like that. The worst dew point I've ever felt is about 82, 83, which is humidity so bad that you can barely breathe. So just another disclaimer, do not look at the humidity percentage, guys. Look at the dew points. The dew points is really what you look at to really actually indicate what it feels like humidity-wise outside. But enough of that. Some storms are possible in southeast Wyoming today. I would say the time frame would be as early as late afternoon, evening, and these will move into western sections of Nebraska. You know, if you're in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, some storms are possible around the 7 to 9 p.m. time frame. Sterling region in areas of northeast Colorado. But look at these storms continuing to kick on through here in central North Dakota. I mean, this is around 10 p.m. These storms are still kicking, guys. That's why I'm surprised there's not a marginal risk extending a little bit further east into the Dakotas. But these storms, you know, if you're in central Nebraska, it's going to be another night where some storms ride through. And there could just be an area of storms in this entire central Dakotas region all the way down to central Nebraska. Heck, potentially all the way down into northern sections of Kansas. So, you know, if you're in these regions of these central portions of these states I just mentioned, you could get some storms later this evening into the overnight hours that sweep through this region. Large hail, big threat, damaging winds, big threat. Be careful with this. There is a marginal risk of severe storms in Montana today, but you know, you might only get 1 or 2 storms up in Montana. So, you know, definitely just pay attention to the radar up here. Western U.S., typical flow that we've seen over the last several days as we're moving here. Okay, I guess this is not going to get in motion for me. Moving here in time this afternoon, more of those showers and downpours develop in the Four Corners region and just kind of spin. Could get some action here in southern Wyoming. And once again, you know, south of Tucson, it almost keeps showing the same cluster of storms. Let me know if you're tuning in from south of Tucson. I'd be interested. I don't watch out here, but let me know if you guys are actually getting the same area of storms here south of Tucson. It'd be interesting to know. But just same monsoonal energy that is just continuing to kind of churn out here through northern New Mexico, central and northern, basically all of Arizona, through Utah. It could be a little bit more active today with some showers, maybe some storm action. Colorado, as these can just kind of spin about out here. Some of these could produce some severe weather south of Tucson today. Temperatures today, very hot in the mid-Atlantic region ahead of this stable air mass push that moves through. But, I mean, temperatures might actually drop in sections of kind of western and northern New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire today as this cold front moves in kind of early in the day. Temperature will be very hot ahead of this outflow boundary that kind of shoots through Missouri. So I think you'll quickly warm into the upper 90s, maybe low 100s into Missouri today. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana continue to be hot. Typical late summer kind of stuff in the deep south, mid-south. But there is a boundary in the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, where you go from the 90s and just very humid to just 70s and 80s. You know, and in sections of Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, the Great Lakes region, very pleasant day today for sure. Western U.S., it's warming back up in the Pacific Northwest, warming back up into areas of Montana as this ridge begins to build back northward again, unfortunately. So just about everybody out west is above average, except maybe extreme northwest sections of the country. So That's all I got. God bless all y'all. Have a great Saturday, and I'll talk to you tonight.